Well, it's very difficult to say that I love playing the instrument that I play. It's just that it's happened that way. I think a musician has to say they love playing music rather than the instrument they play. I think that's important for us to get beyond the individual qualities of the instrument. Otherwise, you find there's a gap between what you're doing instrumentally and communicating with an audience. You're playing tunes. You have your own individual opportunity to play solos, and that's your responsibility. But so much of it is collective. It's trying to meld with other instruments, making sure your section balances out, making sure there's an internal balance within the wind section with the flute and oboe and clarinet and bassoon. I mean, if I could explain, for instance, about 5 or 6 years ago, I had to make a choice of what kind of instrument to play, and there was a very definite, it came down to a choice of 2 types of instrument, and the choice was based on the blend that I could achieve with the flute and the tuning of the overtones with the flute, actually. Whereas if I was a soloist and if I was doing things on my own, I might have made a very different choice, because I'm not then considering, how I'm melding into a section. I mean, there's always a trade-off between blend and projection, and the best kinds of sounds, the sound that everyone's aiming for, is something that costs you little effort, but actually reaches the back of the hall, and can be audible in the most beautiful pianissimo possible, without any sense of straining. But of course there's a trade-off always. Mahler's sound world is very much the kind of, it's a world that he inherited from hearing bands marching past. He had this, there's a passage in the First Symphony, for instance, where the band kind of approaches from afar and then disappears into the distance. You can hear what's forming in his mind, and actually I think at the base of his experience of music is also probably a feeling for Jewish music, and he would have heard, probably the klezmer bands of the early part of this century, the later part of the 19th century, which were very much a part of the sound of Jewish folk music in Central Europe in that period, and I think that must have stuck in his mind, because you see the music that he's writing, and a lot of it is very Jewish. There's also a feeling for irony, I think, and so the plangent sound of the oboe, for instance, is obvious in that context. The sound of the clarinet can be very extreme and very strident, and so he uses that in a very persuasive way as well. And he gets the instruments to put their bells in the air as well, which makes a very different kind of acoustic sound. It's actually very difficult to play that way, because when you're lifting up, it's the sound here and the feel changes completely. If you're at the back of the hall, it makes a huge impact, because the sound comes out of the tone holes on a wind instrument, not out of the bell, and so once you lift it up, the sound is going upwards rather than through the rest of the orchestra. So you hear much more strongly what's going on.